And welcome once again to Leto's Law. I'm Steve Leto. We are trying a couple new things here. Such played with my microphone. Hey guys, thanks for checking in. Number three, first. Hey, I got a question. How does it sound? I did a test yesterday, and we'll talk about tree law in a moment. I did a test yesterday, and the sound was off. By off, I mean it was horrible. So I played with the microphone a tiny little bit. So if you are now, could you please reflect on how my voice sounds? Sounds good? Okay. Well, echoing, there's only so much I can do about that. You might notice, taking transportation, were you here yesterday? That name rings a bell. So University of Oklahoma, sound is better, but still bad. Something, there's only so much I can do with the equipment I've got in front of me. But for those of you who are curious, I did a live feed yesterday. I had just gotten this camera, and I unboxed it, and I connected it to my setup in my other office, and I was playing with it, and I went live with it, and people checked in. At one point, we had about 500 people, I think, online, and the sound was horrific. And one of the reasons was that I had unboxed it and plugged it in without adjusting anything on it, so the microphone was literally cranked. Yeah, I look pale from Finland because of my Finnish background. That's why I look pale. But so I played with the adjustment on the microphone volume. I brought that down a little bit, so hopefully that'll keep it from over modulating, as we say. And as you may know, I'm also sitting in my studio, so there's a $100 bill right there. And of course, the rest of the background is what you're familiar with. So if the sound is okay, then that's all I really need to care about at this moment in time. Obviously, the camera's not as good as my other one, but for live purposes. So, hey, I'm in Lawrence, Kansas. Ever heard of us? Of course. Do you remember the movie The Day After that was on TV back in the early 80s? There's a famous scene where somebody got in a radio and said, Lawrence, Kansas, Lawrence, Kansas. Other than that, that's all I know. Tracy Gustafson, why aren't you asking the same question? Couldn't I? DSD Kane, it's good enough for a live stream. And that's all we're looking for right now. Like I said, later on, I'm going to dial it up a little bit. In fact, I had some people contact me yesterday and tell me about some ideas for how to upgrade this incrementally without too much hassle and cost. It's not the cost so much, the hassle. I mean, literally just trying to figure out how anything works these days is difficult. And our dog lawyer is good at sniffing out the truth. Presumably, the problem is if you ask for a lawyer dog, they don't send you one. The establishment asks as if they don't exist. So, sounds better than yesterday. Gary Belcher, thank you very much. How do I separate legal mail from fan mail? I can't. I have to read it all, find out. So, the funny thing is I do have a P.O. Box, P.O. Box 168, Atlas, Michigan 48411. Most of it gets sent. There is stuff for the show. I hate to call it fan mail, but the correspondence to Leto's Law, and most of my business mail comes to my office. Sounds better. Video pretty bad, but isn't the video as bad as it is better than it was yesterday? So that's all I'm asking about. But as you might guess, there's lights here, and lights down here. And that's why we have so much light. In case you're curious, yeah, sorry about that, Tigerman99515. I'm at work. The reason I didn't give you a heads up is this is again another test, and if it really crashed and burned, I'd pull the plug and pretend it never happened. So what I'm planning on doing, in case you're curious, and the plebiscite is saying hi from the UK. Hey, thanks for checking in. I appreciate that. Yesterday with people from Japan and Australia. So I like it when people check in from far away. Incrementally better. Hat Newsom, that's all I ask for, because if I just make it incrementally better each time, as long as we're heading in the right direction, that's all I care about. So Fort Myers, Southwest Florida. I always thought that was more West Florida as opposed to Southwest Florida, but then again, I guess you work in the Panhandle. But my goal is, once I've figured this out to where this is feasibly passable, acceptable, what I'm going to do then is I'm going to go ahead and launch a regularly scheduled thing so I can announce it in advance, say, hey, everybody. So if I had to guess right now, I'm probably thinking Sunday afternoons, give or take. noon, 3 o'clock Eastern time. I'm on the Eastern time zone, being in Detroit and whatnot. So call me immediately, Herb Stolpestad. That video rocks. Thank you. Call me immediately, by the way, is something I still do to this very day, and I encourage you to do it also. Whenever you get somebody who sends you an email that is trying to sell you something worthless, absolutely worthless, type back to them and say, call me immediately, because they're banking on most people not responding at all. So if you respond and say, call me immediately, you can waste their time as they try to figure out how to call you immediately. So Boca Raton, Southeast Florida, I'm very familiar with Mr. Smith. Thanks for checking in. I got friends down in that area. Sound is better, but still distorted at high volume. But like I said, trying to dial it in. So Atlas, Michigan is about an hour drive from Southfield. I take it you have an hour drive at your office. Not quite, but you can figure it all out. Face color is normal. Voice is out of sync. That might be a problem with the connection. And that's another one of the things I'm experimenting with here, because I do not have a direct cord into this computer that I have at my other computers and so on. So one of the things that if it gets unwatchably out of sync, then I'm going to have to figure that out as well. Someone says there is a cat lawyer, dog. Yeah, but is there a lawyer cat? You thought about turning on Super Chat. I'm not even sure what that is. I should probably look into that. There's a whole bunch of stuff, but my way of learning things is I do things one at a time, and as soon as I master one skill, then I move up one more. And I just now figured out how to do the live video feeds, so I'll do this for a little while before I start messing with things like Super Chat. Voice sync is fine here. Daniel Hughes, thank you, sir. Cincinnati, Ohio, checking in. I love Cincinnati. Been there many times. Cincinnati, Ohio, of course, is the place that has their airport in another state. I believe their Cincinnati airport is in Kentucky, if I'm not mistaken. But hey, do anything you want. Let people send you money. I don't need your money. If all that does is allow you to send me money, I don't want it. Please do not send me money. It should be the other way around. I should be paying you for listening and watching. Toledo, across the border. Toledo, which used to be in Michigan, believe it or not, prior to the Toledo War. But and Monroe, Michigan, right across the dotted line from Toledo. Robert Odell. Hey, Robert, I've been meaning to ask you. I got a good friend named Bob Odell who is a disc jockey, and now that I see you're in Monroe, I know that that's not the same man. My good friend Bob Odell, disc jockey, lives in Arizona, but I remember seeing you from time to time. Mikro from Finland. Look at this. Junk phone call. I will swipe down. Miami here, not the Ohio one, but the real one. Jeff. Hey, Jeff, how you doing, man? I've run the Miami Marathon a few years ago. That was a lot of fun. Got to go out and check out Miami and the environs, various suburbs and so on. North Dakota. I've been to South Dakota, but not the North Dakota. I'm assuming that North is colder than South, but it can't be by much, right? The audio is in Spanish for some reason. That is actually impossible, as Spanish being one of the many languages I do not speak. I barely speak English. Picture is better than yesterday, but the sound, however, is as if you are sitting in a metal container. Maybe due to the fact that I'm sitting in Russia. Sanctions, Hey, what happens to the wonderful tones of my voice once it crosses the international borders? I have no control. What do I think of Pennsylvania? I've been to Pennsylvania a few times. I've driven through it. I've driven to New York City a couple times by way of Pennsylvania. It's a lovely state. You got your mountains. You got all kinds of stuff. Beautiful rivers, lovely land. Pennsylvania is a great, great state. Romeoville, Illinois. Romeoville. Yeah, Michigan's got a city called Romeo. And you may know that Romeo, Michigan, I believe, is the hometown of Kid Rock. You may have heard of that young man from Michigan who's making some noise on the rock and roll scene, or so they tell me. Props for Georgia. Hey, Georgia is another lovely state. I've driven through it a few times. And spent a lot of time there changing airplanes at the Atlanta airport. And plus also the Atlanta Motor Speedway. I've done laps at the Atlanta Motor Speedway in Richard Petty's Superbird. So I love Georgia. The audio is okay. Again, that's all I'm striving for today. Have I been to the U.S. Supreme Court? I've visited the U.S. Supreme Court, and I've filed things in the Michigan Supreme Court, but I've never gotten to argue in front of them, nor have I ever had a case accepted by them. Michigan Supreme Court accepts something about 3 or 4% of the cases that get submitted to them. So you've got a 97% chance of not having your case accepted if you send it to them. I live in the Poconos. Nice here, but can't compare to the Adirondacks or Green Mountains of Vermont. I've heard the Poconos are nice. In fact, I've got some friends who've gone mountain biking there. So your voice has that tinny type sound, dead cat cover for mics sometimes help. Now, yeah, no, this is not going to help, Jeff. Just in case you're curious, the microphone I'm speaking into is way over here. So it's not a windscreen issue or anything like that. It's literally just a cheap, El Cheapo condenser mic. The camera costs $60, but the mic's about 13 cents of that. So California, Los Angeles, went to law school there. Gotta love Los Angeles. Bob says he lives in a van down by the river. Which river, though? And how nice is the van? The question is, if you live in a van down by the river, is the van movable? Does the van have license plates? Does it run under its own power? Or are you living in a van that's beached down by the river? Because that's a whole different level if you've actually sunk to the point where you're living in an immobile van. Does the lemon law cover used cars? Not in most states, no. Most states, lemon law generally covers brand new cars only. What other YouTube lawyers do you like to follow? The only one I'm really familiar with is Leonard, and it's because he spends a lot of time on the sovereigns. So I like him. I don't actually spend a lot of time following other people or other lawyers. Is the van registered? If you're living in the van, is it registered and plated? That's a real question. But of course, if you're not moving the van and you're not traveling in it, so you might not have that problem. So another $100 competition. I've got these things, and I can't put it in the bank where it would earn interest, so I got to just leave it back here. I'd like to come up with another contest no one can win. To put it back there, but by the way, I have to tell you, this right here is a bank, and it was made by an artist in Michigan. I bought it at a gift shop up in Traverse City, Michigan. I had several people ask me about that, where I got it from. I bought it at a gift shop, but if you are interested in finding that bank or looking at it online, go onto Google and type in Titanic Bank and then Michigan artist, and you'll find the guy, and there's a website that has him up there. Do I like to cook? No, but I have a barbecue. I like to barbecue, but even my barbecue repertoire is very limited. Hamburgers, hot dogs, and occasional steaks. So Table Rock Lake, Kimberling City, Missouri. Never heard of that. Do you wish you'd waited to buy a 2020 Explorer considering all the changes they made? Possibly. But, I hate to admit I've got buyer's remorse. So, it had been 17 years since I bought a new Explorer. It was about time. So, little overmodulation. I can fix that by lowering the volume on the input, which I can do after I end this and before the next one. So, I'll just make a note to bring it down just a tiny little bit. Thanks from West Virginia for sharing your knowledge with us, Joe. Hey, Joe, thanks for the note. And never been to West Virginia, but I heard it's a beautiful country. Steve Dog, I like the live chat. Tim, thank you very much, sir. I've got a brother named Tim. Mentioned yesterday, I've got 5 brothers. Ken, Bruce, Dave, Rick, Tim, and then me. What is in your garden? I've got an overgrown garden in front of my house. I let it go back to nature. Somebody previously had planted a garden there, and I like the way the weeds look. And I'm not just saying this, I'm lazy. I actually like the way they do look. Nice shirt, Steve. I've always liked that Tucker model you have behind you. Thank you. And yes, of course, this is the Tucker logo for the Tucker Automobile Company. That's the Tucker family crest. That's the Tucker 48 automobile right there. And I changed the cars a couple times recently, but there's the Bobby Isaac Charger Daytona, a Chrysler Turbine car. A lot of people mistakenly think that that's a T-Bird, and it's not. And then, of course, the Ferrari GTO that someone sent in recently after I told a story about how a neighbor of mine when I was growing up had a Ferrari GTO. And I thank the gentleman who sent that to me. It's a wonderful, beautiful thing to put on the shelf. It's the first foreign car I've ever put up there, but I made an exception because the Ferrari GTO is an exceptional car, of which there really is no American equivalent. So, Louisville, Kentucky, where we have no speed limits on the local interstate highway. Enjoy them while you can. And of course, someone's pointing out that this is not possibly the Titanic, because the Titanic had 3 screws or 3 propellers. Yeah, and also Titanic was bigger than that. So I suspect that the guy who made that believed it was an artistic representation of the Titanic. But then again, on the internet, people can be as precise as they want to be. Have you ever been in court with Bob Costin? No, the name does not ring a bell. Hollywood Saint, I'm a truck driver. Congratulations. It's an honorable profession. And I have a ton of respect for the guys who drive the trucks, especially the long haul guys. Most people don't understand how much of our economy is driven by, supported by, and would grind to a halt without the truck drivers who haul the big rigs around our country. That's how everything gets to the store you shop at. So when you go to Kroger, Meijer, Walmart, Sam's Club, Costco, whatever it is, almost everything there came by truck. So next time you're on the road and you see a truck going along, give them a thumbs up, let them know you like the work they're doing. Jack is pointing out the Buick Grand National for some reason. Beautiful car. I've got a brother who's really into Buicks. Buicks are wonderful cars. Of course, from Flint, Michigan. I've worked in Flint several times. Have you ever come close to being held in contempt of court from Hot Soup? No. Generally speaking, I've managed to control myself in court. I've had a few occasions where I got very, very angry, but I've managed to get out of the courtroom before I exploded. Looks like you need a bigger shelf. A bookcase. And I mentioned yesterday the bookcase was custom made by my brother. I've got a brother who does woodworking, and that bookcase was handmade by my brother to my specifications. I believe it's cherry wood, and it's from a tree that he chopped down himself and made into lumber himself and cured himself, and then measured, chopped up, put together, and delivered it to me. I've got a matching one right there that you can't see off camera. And I got a bunch of furniture in my living room that's made by him, including the desk that I sit at every day is made by him. And I've got a coffee table in my living room that weighs about 1,000 pounds. It's made out of a block of maple. So good afternoon, counselor, and good day to you too. I appreciate that. Someone says I deliver new camper trailers. Interesting. So do you actually like hook them up to a vehicle and drive them up someplace and then drive back and do it again? Or do you put a bunch of them on a trailer and haul them that way? Interestingly. Thank you for saying that, Steve. About the truck drivers? Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. And that's the thing, many people in our society don't slow down to just take a look at things around them and ask themselves, like, how does this happen? How does this work? And so I've actually known a guy. I've had a couple clients who are truck drivers, and I know the work they went through to become truck drivers, and I talked to them about how hard the job is, how much time they spend away from home, and so on. So, I like to throw out the props when I can. Is your brother George Washington chopping down cherry trees and all? Robert Klein, no, but he's taken down his fair share of trees. And I'll tell you right now, in my family, I've got 2 brothers who are both very, very mechanically inclined. Actually, I got 3, 4. Actually, now in case you're listening, all you guys are mechanically inclined. But I've got 2 brothers in particular who are really into chainsaws. And the brother who chopped this tree down here has a collection of chainsaws, and to him, chainsaws are like guitars were to Jimi Hendrix. And so he's out in the woods cutting up the wood, and to him, it's like he's home. So, oh boy, Ricky, hello, Steve. Hey, how you doing? Is that a real $100 bill? Yes, this is a real $100 bill. Now, many of you will know this is not the original $100 bill that I've had on the show. Somebody else actually wrote to me and said, Steve, I will trade you if you'll sign that one. So someone sent me this new one, and I signed the old one and sent it back to them. So this is the replacement $100 bill, but it's real. It's about as real as it gets right there. And the key with that, of course, is that this one's not bent or folded, so I haven't mutilated or spindled it yet. So I try to find places where I can just lay it without bending it or anything like that. So I move it around the background from time to time. Does this new direction have anything to do with the big $100,000 announcement? Cannot wait till Christmas. Pro driver. No. I'm actually trying to expand on this channel a few different ways. One of which is I'm going to start doing live feeds about once a week, maybe, if I can do them. And then I'm going to try to bring in more guests from time to time. And so my goal is to mix it up to where if you come onto my channel and you want to get involved in a live feed, you can do that. If you want to watch me talk about a specific topic, great. Or if you want to see me talk to an expert about something, you can talk, do that as well. So I've got almost 800 videos up, and it's going to get to the point where it's like, what else are you going to talk about? So we'll do what we can. Our only chainsaw was stolen. I'm so sorry to hear that. People who steal chainsaws are like people who steal horses, Is it legal to send cash through the mail? I don't know why it wouldn't be. It might not be the smartest thing to do, but I believe you can mail it. I do know that FedEx and UPS have got rules about sending cash, but I don't think the Postal Service has any rules against it. Can you tell us more about the knife you used to open the mail? Well, it's interesting. I don't have the Rapala in front of me, but I do have the Morakniv, which is the one that somebody sent me recently. And this is the Swedish knife I use to open the mail. But the knife I use to open the mail usually is a Rapala. Rapala, R-A-P-A-L-A. It's made in Finland. And the Rapala company makes knives and fishing lures. And they've been around for a long, long time. And being, of Finnish ancestry, I've known about Finnish companies all my life, including Nokia, the phone company. But I remember hearing about Rapalas when I was a little kid, and then later on I found out they made knives, so I bought a Rapala to open my mail. You have 802 videos, I believe. Ricky, thank you, sir. The only reason I ever know is occasionally I look at socialblade.com to see how I'm doing with my rankings, and it'll say how many videos I have up. And so I'm never sure if it counts all my videos or just my public videos, because I do have a couple videos that I put up that aren't public yet or I'm still playing with. So, but I know I'm over 750-ish. So, what lodge do you belong to? I have no idea what you're talking about. As a big guy who runs distance on a regular basis, how do you prevent beating up your knees? I run very slowly, and I only run every other day at most. So I don't, and I've never have had knee problems. I played soccer in high school, didn't start distance running until I was an adult. And the second I feel any pain whatsoever, I cut it out, I stop until I get better. So I've yet to have any injuries like that. And that's the key. I know people who've had knee problems, hip problems, foot problems. So far, right now, knock on wood, I haven't had anything like that. I'm 57 years old. And this October, in about 3 weeks, I'm running my 14th or 15th marathon overall. I got to count them again to find out. James Kirk points out there's a lot of oddities in the law, so I probably won't run out of topics. I don't think so either. Oh, boy. So let's see here. I heard Finland is a conspiracy and doesn't exist. It's funny you should mention it. I'm sure you're talking about the same thing I am. But somebody started a joke on Reddit and said, hey, did you realize that Finland isn't a real place? And he actually got people to believe it. And there are people out there who go, Finland's not a real place. Yeah, tell that to Russia. How often do you actually go to court for a lemon law case? JP, thanks JP for the note. It's interesting what you mean by go to court. I'd say about 1/3 of my cases settle before a lawsuit is filed, but I have to file lawsuits on the other 2/3 of them. So they go to court in that sense, they go to court. But actual trial, I haven't had a lemon law case go to trial in years. They settle. It's a question whether they settle early or settle late. And you can never tell where they're going to settle in the process. Have you run the Tallahassee Trail? No, I have not. The only running I've done in Florida, I ran the Miami Marathon. I ran the Fort Lauderdale Marathon. So I ran a couple of Florida marathons there. Of the 250 people on right now, I'm possibly the only actual fan of soccer or metric football, and that's Ken Davis. I wonder if that's true, because occasionally I wear a Manchester United shirt, and I get more grief from that. And what's funny is I'm an American. Okay, I've never been to a football match in England, and I probably never will be. I don't know. I played soccer in high school, but years ago when I first got DirecTV, which I don't even have anymore, they had a channel that showed Premier League soccer. And I was watching it at the time that David Beckham was on the team, and they were just dominant. And I remember watching going, hey, these guys are pretty good. And it seemed to me they were kind of like the New York Yankees of British football. So as a result of that, I'd watch them, they'd win, and they were amazing. They were fun to watch. So I got the Man U shirt from a friend of mine who lives in England. Now when I wear it, I get all kinds of grief because they're not that good anymore. And I guess it's people who don't like them, because I guess one of their ways of doing things is they spend lots of money and buy the best talent, or at least they used to. And of course, if you spend as much money as God, you can have a great team. So someone else points out that there are other football fans on here, including Some Darn Guy and VW and Tiny. So there's a few of us, you know. And I'll admit, if I'm flipping around the channels and I find a Premier League soccer game on, or a upper tier game from a European league, Real Madrid, Barcelona, Germany's got a good league. I'll often watch those, because to me it's fun to watch, even if I have no idea who the teams are and so on. So I like watching it. To me, it's entertaining. Hockey is my game, Scottius. Hey, Scotty, good to hear from you. I'm a Red Wings fan, of course, and I've got a very good friend who has season tickets to Flint Generals in I think it's the International Hockey League, and it's you can go see them play in Flint, and it's a stadium so small that you can yell at the players and they hear you, and they sometimes yell back, and it's a lot of fun to go watch these games, because tickets are like, I don't know, $10, and you're this close to the ice. The hockey is of dubious quality, but it's fun to watch. So, Man U are technically a bunch of prima donnas, not a cohesive football team, and that might be true. Which reminds me of Brazil in the World Cup a few years ago. There was 10 players in the field, each of whom was brilliant, but couldn't play with anybody else at the time. And then, of course, soccer is just dodgeball for girly boys afraid to be physically hit by a ball, dare to defy. And that we would call the other side of the argument. Hey, Steve, are you really a lawyer? Yes, I am, Joe. Thank you for asking. And in case you're ever curious about this, you can go to the Michigan Bar Association website, mishbar.org, michbar.org, mishbar.org, and it'll say find an attorney, and you can type in Lehto, Lehto, and you'll find 3 attorneys in Michigan named Lehto: Michael, Neil, and Steve. That's me. So that'll confirm for you that I'm a lawyer in good standing in Michigan. You can argue all you want about how much work I do because I make so many videos, but that's another story altogether. Somebody mentioned Jacksonville, Florida, living there. Cool. Good to check in. Media Watch, I understand you perfectly, even though it may not be broadcast quality. My Logitech webcam mic sounds boomy as well. I use a $20 USB audio interface. Yeah, I should look into that, because right now I'm just using the built-in microphone or the built-in camera and a little Logitech thing that clips on top of something. And I've talked to people about running this microphone, because I'm not using this one right now. This one's not on. Okay, that's my Electro Voice RE20. I'd love to be talking into that with either this camera or a better camera. So there's going to be some way to do that. What are your thoughts on the new Little Caesars Arena, and is it better than the Joe? I have to admit, I've not been inside of it yet. I have not been inside the Little Caesars Arena. So I have to take a look. I know people have been there. They say it's amazing. But I wasn't inside the Joe Louis Arena that many times either, so it's been a little while. Oh, you seem like a fun person to hang out with. Dude, I'm a riot. I'm just joking. Oh, can a Michigan lawyer practice in California? Not without being admitted there, no, or being brought in pro hoc vice, which is what they call it when you bring in a lawyer for one particular case, and he's got a local lawyer who vouches for him, kind of like in My Cousin Vinny. Although they didn't portray it quite right there. But so whenever I'm giving legal advice, you have to understand my legal advice would only apply in Michigan, and that's only about giving out legal advice, which I'm not. Right now, I'm just simply talking off the top of my head. So but if you call my office and ask me a question, I'll ask you what state you are in. And if you're not in Michigan, I'll say, I can't help you. Legally, you need to contact a local attorney. So someone says I can stream on the phone using the app. I'm just not sure how good that would be, and whether I could even read the comments, because the comments seem to be important to me right now. See here, Steve is a riot as long as you can buy the Diet Coke and plenty of it. You got that right. I've already had 2 today, and today's a slow day. What can I tell you? We got over 265 people on right now. Wait, it's Monday. Don't you people have work to do? So, did you ever watch Shark starring James Woods? No, I didn't. But speaking of James Woods, I actually love the movie The True Believer, and it's starring James Woods and a young Robert Downey Jr. Pre-drugs, And in the movie, James Woods plays a lawyer who takes on one of the most lost causes of all time. And people have asked me before about which legal movies I like or don't like. And I mentioned I love the movie Anatomy of a Murder. Its courtroom stuff is really, really good. But if you want to see a movie, I should probably turn this off. What do you think? If you want to see a movie that I think it's not necessarily the most accurate as far as legal stuff goes, but I think it's very, very entertaining and it's thought-provoking, is a movie called True Believer with James Woods. Fabulous. So, Shannon Stottlemyre, I love your stories. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Like I told you, I've got a story that I'm saving up for when I get from 82,000 where I'm at right now to 100,000 subscribers. So we think that'll be around Christmas. I'll hit 100,000 subscribers. And as I promised yesterday, foolishly to somebody who asked me, will I be doing a book giveaway when I hit 100,000 subscribers? I guess I had to say yes, so I said yes. So two things will happen when I hit 100,000 subscribers. One is I'm going to give away 100 copies of the Lemon Law Bible, which is a book I should have a copy, but I don't. I got one, but not handy. And then I'm also going to put up a video of a story that's in my head right now, but I'll put it on video and tell it here for the first time. And I assure you it'll be worth it. Did the bad judge you talked about go to prison? Depends on which bad judge you're talking about. But the one judge in Brighton, Michigan, who got in trouble for how she was treating people in her courtroom, she got sanctioned by the state bar. She got removed from the bench, and she's currently facing criminal charges, so she could go to prison. So we'll see. I was in front of her a couple times, and I'm here to tell you that I will not cry if she goes to prison. I have a mini fridge next to the computer full of Diet Cokes. I think I've had at least 4. I've actually toyed with the idea about bringing in a mini fridge and sticking it underneath my desk just to save myself the short walk to the refrigerator. We'll be coming to Disney World this January for the marathons. I've never run any of those event marathons like that. I've mixed feelings with them. I'm curious to know how good they are. If anybody's run a marathon like that, let me know. I've toyed with the idea about, like, say, going to Washington, D.C., doing the Marine Marathon or something like that, or maybe like London or Paris or something. But even like the New York City Marathon, I've tried entering it, but it's difficult to get into. So I limit myself right now. I do the Free Press Detroit Marathon once a year, and then I run a bunch of smaller races in training for it. Has a judge ever left you speechless? I've had a couple of judges that did things that really annoyed me to the point where I wanted to punch somebody, but I didn't punch anybody. So, do attorneys work on recorded lines? In most places, I think it'd be considered unethical to not inform your client that you're recording them, but it may or may not be illegal. Michigan's a single consent state, so theoretically, I could record a phone call to the client or vice versa. But I think as a matter of just candor, being honest with your client, you should tell them that. Chicago Marathon is a fun one. Yeah, I bet it is. I think the Chicago Marathon, though, is the week before Detroit. And if that's true, I couldn't run them both. And I have not missed a Detroit in a long, long time. Amy just did my first 5K Saturday. Came in with the tail end of the first half. You're looking at it wrong. Number one, you ran your first 5K. Congratulations. That's 3.1 miles. That's fabulous. It's your first one. You did not come behind anybody. You beat everyone who did not run that day. And that's what I tell people as I'm slogging along mile 24 and 25, when we're running along really, really tired, bodies hurt, sore, aches, scrapes, dehydrated, and you look the person next to you, and you thinking to yourself, everyone is almost finished. No, you beat everyone who did not run that day, and you remember that. You're not a fan of the Fitbit. You know, it's funny. I put that video up before I started doing more videos. I owned a Fitbit for a while, and it got out of warranty, then it broke. And I went to look up online how to fix it, and everyone basically just says, oh, it broke, it's out of warranty, kiss it goodbye, it's junk. And it broke so easily, it really bothered me. So I took it out in my front yard, and I put it on a rock, and I smashed it with another rock, and I filmed it, and I put the video up on YouTube and said, here's how you fix your Fitbit, because this will at least resolve the problem of the screen doing that thing. And I had several people email me, go, Steve, but that doesn't really fix it. And I said, the way I phrased it, I didn't. Brianna says she was here before 10,000 subs. If that's true, congratulations. It's kind of funny. Somebody asked me the other day about how fast I got to different levels, and I had never really stopped to think about it. And I went and looked, and in the first year I was online with YouTube, 1 year I had 12 subscribers. So at the end of the first year, 12 subscribers. So the bulk of my subscribers have joined me in the last 12 months. But the beginning was very, very slow. But then again, my first few videos had nothing to do with the law. I put up a video about the Italian Hall disaster. I put up a video about the Chrysler Turbine car and so on. So, I wasn't really working that hard to get them. Stephen Woodward, named after a lovely road in Michigan. How do you rate 12 Angry Men? I haven't seen it in so long. I can't really speak to it. I should probably check it out. Several people recommended it to me recently, but I haven't seen it. Media Watch says, if you see me run, you better run too because something's chasing me. No, it's an old joke, but something that's really true of anybody who's running. They're running from something. The question is what? Can you define bumper to bumper? Does this mean outside weather stripping on a 2019 Jetta purchased in 2018? Bumper to bumper is a catchy phrase that they use to sell things. But you've always got to look at the exclusions because quite often the bumper to bumpers will have exclusions and they don't cover things like batteries, tires, and some of the obvious stuff. But you'd be surprised at how comprehensive their exclusions can get. And I've seen some exclusions where we'll say like, bumper to bumper, everything but, and they list so much stuff, you're going, guys, you should just stop saying bumper to bumper. So I don't know with respect to a VW. Somebody using the Spartan helmet as an icon says, go with a Garmin. They honor their warranty. I own a Garmin Phoenix, and the bands are switchable. You can use it for running, cycling, skiing, hiking, workout, walking, and many, many more activities. Yeah, I also have a Garmin GPS handheld unit that I use, an InReach that has a satellite connections where you can send text and receive text via satellite, and I use it on my canoe. So I'm very familiar with Garmin stuff. I really, really like Garmin. I was not too impressed with Fitbit, but, I don't normally bash on brands here. Hollywood Saint says I show my receipts at Walmart now. Good for you. The universe of the internet is split in half between those who show the receipts and those who do not. Let's see here. Brianna is answering somebody. JB, he's a practicing attorney. Yeah, in case I didn't see what you're responding to there, but in case you're curious, I am in fact a practicing attorney in the state of Michigan, where I've been practicing law now for 28 years in the fields of consumer protection and lemon law. And I looked over here to see if I could reach it, but I can't. But about 1 foot out of reach there is the certificate of admission I could show you that says that I've been admitted to practice in the state of Michigan. But like I said, you can go to mishbar.org and look it up yourself. What's the deal with the microphones? And do I want more? Yeah, I always want more. It's just if I put more in, I got to bump some out. I used to work in radio, so that's why I have a lot of references to radio. WFDF here is the station I used to work at, and so that's just an homage to my time in radio. So isn't it cheating to put a motor on a canoe? It depends on how much ground you want to cover. If I want to go out and cover 30 miles in an afternoon, I need a motor. Where did I get my Civil War sword? I bought it from a dealer. You can find several dealers online that are reputable, that will have very, very good photographs of the swords you want to look at and buy. And I forgot what I paid for mine. I was actually looking at their website the other day. I'm tempted to buy more, but I had no earthly reason to even own one, let alone more than one. But there's dealers out there who have them. Let's go to the phones and take a caller. I should look into that technology, but I'm not sure if it's possible that easily. I know that Mark, I'm drawing a blank on his last name, but the guy who does talk about the laws and jurisdiction, he takes live phone calls. I tried to call him one day and we had technical issues. So stop ragging on the sovereigns. I'm trying to cut back, but every now and then I find something that's just so on point, I've got to do it. So I love your channel. I love your common sense and your sense of humor. Thank you very much. And I love your real hair. Never occurred to me you got a toupee. Don't care. Love the information, content, the videos. If I watch enough of your videos, maybe I can take the bar exam. By the way, it depends on the light. but it's kind of funny. I did get a lot of comments around one era, and it was the videos I shot, not in this room, but in the room before, which would be, I guess, season 3. And there's a wall behind me that slants like this, and the light behind me is unusual, and I had a hard time lighting that room right. And something about the way that light hit my head caused my scalp to get this really, really dark line right there. And for some odd reason, people thought that was the indication of a toupee, but you can see that that's my real hair. And I mean, I can show you photographs going back to when I was a little kid. Nothing's changed except that it's gotten a tad darker over the ages. But if I go out in the sun a lot, it lightens back up again. I love VWs. Okay, Volkswagens. Will you be posting this as a video later? Yes. When I'm done with the video, I can hit save and it'll get archived. And once it gets archived, then it will be viewable by anybody who wants to watch it. And the live chat will show up on the side if you're on a desktop, and you can read the live chat, but you will not be able to actually interact with the live chat during the video as you watch it on your desktop. But you can, yes, you can watch this later and listen to the whole thing. So if you miss the beginning, you can catch the end, and vice versa. El Flaco, we love you, Steve. I hope everything is going well. Thank you for all your great videos. Thank you very much. I really appreciate this. And you know what's interesting is and I don't ever want to come on here and fish for compliments, but every now and then the internet has this thing where people tend to be more negative than positive. And that's true in all endeavors. I remember on the radio they used to say that for every one person who calls you up and tells you that they hate you, there's 10 people who didn't call up, because people don't call up and say, hey, I love you, you know. So once in a while you read a lot of the comments underneath the video and you go, wow, everybody disagrees with me, until you realize the video's got 10,000 views and 100 comments. So the 100 comments is literally 1% of the viewers. And if 50 of those comments hate you, that's 1/2 of 1% of the viewers. So you get this outsized impression from a very, very small slice of who's actually responding. So it's kind of fun to do this, because I know right now that we've got 283 people online, but a lot of people commenting. I need to visit Higgins Lake with my canoe. Yes, I'd like to. I've been to Higgins Lake before, but not in my canoe. I might be taking my canoe up north one more time this year in an attempt to get some shots of the fall colors along the Tequamanon River in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Right now, the colors are turning. I'll bring my cameras. I'll shoot some video. I hope you guys enjoy it. I'll show it. I'll put it up later. Wesley says he thinks I'm a good, honest dude. Is my first impression. At least I hope you're talking about me. As the recovering T-shirt collector, curious to know how many you have. Several hundred, 300 or 400. I keep getting more T-shirts sent to me, double XL, and if I get a shirt that fits me and it's not obscene, I'll wear it. And depending on how appropriate it is, I'll work it into the rotation. So I'll try to wear them all at least once, but some get worn more often than others. And I recently had to take a big chunk out and take them and stick them in a closet just to allow the other ones to rotate through. So I have, in the shirts I wear on the show, I'm guessing 150, maybe 200, but you know, it all depends. So like this one, you probably have seen a dozen times now, because this is a shirt that I bought myself 2 years ago, and I've worn it a lot. I wear it a lot different places, and also because I wrote the book about Tucker, so I like this shirt a lot. Greetings from Southern California. By the way, Southern California would be happy to know that a couple days ago I wore a In-N-Out Burger T-shirt. I love In-N-Out Burger. We don't have them in Michigan yet. Maybe later on they will. Make longer videos on the river. Yeah, the Tequamanon River thing I'm going to do for the fall colors. I'm hoping to put up maybe a half hour or so. I'm going to shoot several hours, but I'm going to put about a half an hour of it, hopefully. So, how do you keep a dead person in jail? Well, in Rhode Island, I think you can be alive and dead simultaneously. It's kind of like the Schrodinger's cat. Okay, Douglas Grants now asked several times, is body blocking to save a parking space illegal? I would not think so, but I've heard of people doing it. I assume you mean where somebody goes and stands in a parking space so their friend can get into it before you get into it, even though you're there with a car. But the problem, of course, is how do you enforce it? Call the cops, you know? Have I ever driven a Tucker? No, I have not. I've seen about a dozen of them. A very good friend of mine currently owns one. He owns the one that Preston Tucker himself owned. It's a silver one. I have not driven it, and I have also not had a chance to have a ride in it yet, but one of these days I will, and I'll shoot some film of that and get that too. I'm not sure I want to drive it, quite frankly, because they're very, very funny shifting. You've got to actually, you flip the lever first, then you depress the clutch, and it's all solenoids. And my fear is that if it broke while I was driving it, I'd feel guilty, even if it wasn't my fault. So, other than politics, are there any subject you try to stay away from, and why? I did talk radio for a long time, and I know there's certain hot button topics, and I'm scared to even mention them because people are going to go, oh my gosh, I just realized you don't talk about that. But let's just say politics, like the Republican Democrat stuff, generally speaking, I'm not going to go there. And there's a few other topics that I kind of avoid, but generally speaking, I have enough good topics to talk about where I can just focus on those and just kind of ignore the others. So, yeah, Robert Klein says he'd be terrified to drive it too. And like I said, I drove, Jay Leno let me drive his turbine car. And that's an automatic. I mean, that wasn't that hard to drive, but I was the whole time going, petrified. Like, what happens if somebody runs a red light and hits us? I'll be the one who was behind the wheel when his car got wrecked. So I didn't want that responsibility. But luckily, we got it back to the garage in one piece. Do I support right to repair laws? Hey, Johnny, how you doing, man? Johnny's a long time follower of the show. Yeah, I do support right to repair laws. I think it's scary how nowadays when you buy a car, they can say the programs inside the car are proprietary, and therefore that it's kind of like when you buy a computer with Microsoft on it. And the idea is that when your car needs repairs, in the old days, you could take it anywhere you wanted and they could fix it. But now, to fix it, they may have to go in and work on the programming portion of it. And some of that's so proprietary, they can actually have special tools that are required to fix this, and they can only then give the tools to their dealerships to keep you from ever getting your car fixed someplace else. And I personally think that they should not allow that to happen. I think it's a kind of a monopoly. That's not fair. But that's happening a lot right now, and there's big corporations that are pushing for that, including the companies like John Deere. I know is big on this, but the car companies are as well, so we'll see what happens. So St. Joseph, Missouri. Ever thought about getting a couple more puppies? No, not at this time. I thought about it, but I'm not going to. So it'll be a little while. We don't have In-N-Out Burger in Chicago either, but we do have Portillo's. Yeah, I've eaten there before. That's a fabulous place. That's a fabulous place. I hung out there one day a couple summers ago with some guys from Opposite Lock, the sub-blog of Jalopnik. Hey, Steve, that thing got a Hemi? That one does. So, nothing like walking out of a bruising argument and finding Steve live. I hope it was a good argument. I mean, a worthwhile one. So, you have a worthwhile argument in court if you're an attorney, but you don't want to be having a crazy argument with your significant other, for instance. Sposita's Ristorante in West Bloomfield, best steaks in the area. I've never eaten there. What's your favorite food? That's tough. I like all kinds of things. Why is Hamtramck pronounced Hamtramck? That's interesting. Hamtramck is a town in Detroit. Strangely enough, I believe Hamtramck is entirely enveloped by Detroit. And I believe Hamtramck, I think the name is Polish. But now it currently has a largely Arab population. And it's Hamtramck, but there seems to be a missing vowel in there. But we know that a lot of other countries in their words miss vowels and they get translated over. And I had a client once whose name looked like it should be pronounced Presbienda. And I went into court in front of a judge in Detroit named Chalinsky, who I believe is Polish. And I stood up and said, I'm here on behalf of Presbienda. And he said, you're here on behalf of Pershbunda. And I looked at him and I said, yeah, you're probably right. So, ever watch People's Court? I did back in the day. It's been a long time since I've watched any of those court shows. They tend to be on during the day when I'm actually working. Then again, what am I doing here, right? But I liked Judge Wapner, and Judge Wapner was good. And I didn't get the impression that Judge Wapner was trying to be dramatic or that he was trying to play to the cameras. And that's the problem I have with all of these other shows, because there's Judge this, Judge Judy, Judge the, all these different judges. And I get the impression that they're all trying to be outrageous and over the top, and they're all preaching for the camera's sake. And I never got into that. We've all been in front of judges, as attorneys, I can tell you this. We've all been in front of judges who are good, and you enjoy watching them on the bench. And, I've often thought, hey, if you brought a camera in here and filmed that would make some good television if it was edited together properly. But it's not because the judge is trying to be entertaining. They just happen to be entertaining. So I get the impression a lot of these judge other people's shows, judge square bracket someone else shows, are trying too hard. By the way, we just broke 300, so I'm happy there. 300 people. Rusty the Bailiff, yeah. Got to like a bailiff who actually becomes part of the show. Matthew Tynan says, I'm extremely knowledgeable. The trick is to avoid the stuff you don't know anything about. It's kind of like if you're carving a sculpture. Just carve away the rock so that you just leave the sculpture behind. I mean, it's not that hard. Remember Milo and Wolfie, were those your dogs? Yes, I've done a video about Milo and Wolfie. They're two Shetland sheepdogs I had for about 15 years each. They overlapped a little bit. One of them passed away in 2017. One passed away 4 years ago. And I had them for a long, long time. If you watch early videos of mine, you'll occasionally see Milo and Wolfie walking behind me in the shots. Occasionally, Milo would actually walk in. I'd sense that he's next to me, and he'd look up at me, and if I ignored him, he'd bark just once, just because he knew it ruined the shot. He knew. Oh, boy. How accurate is the show Bull on CBS? I've never watched that show. There's a bunch of stuff on modern television I haven't watched. I don't watch a lot of network TV these days. That's sad. So do I drink alcohol? Almost never. And it's one of those things. I could literally, if you put a gun to my head and said, Steve, list for me every alcoholic drink you've had in the last 5 years, it would take me about 10 minutes, but I could do it for you. Because I so rarely drink alcohol. It's usually an occasion or something special or something big. And it literally is also usually one or two. I'm not the type of guy who goes, oh, I'm bored, I've got a six-pack, and hammer them down. I had a party at my house a couple years ago and bought some beer for my guests. And about a year and a half later, I'm like, hey, there's still beer in there. I don't drink it. Where's it going to go? So network TV is a dying format. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff on cable, so it's going to be difficult. I'm worried about the advertising model. I think I see more advertisements on YouTube than I do on network television. And I'm not saying that as a bad thing. I'm just saying if you ask yourself, where do you see ads? You most likely see ads on YouTube. And so the money's going to go where the ads are. And when the money goes there, then the programming is going to follow. So I suspect you see a lot more shows being made specifically for the YouTube type places, the Hulu type places, or like Apple TV or things like that. I think you see a lot more stuff migrating there. And network TV is going to become basically reality stuff, Dancing with the Stars, Flip This Island, stupid stuff like that. But I don't think you're going to get as many of the dramas that you used to have, and the ones that you will have will be derivative. CSI, Moose Elbow, Virginia, that kind of thing. So, mail me the beer. Bob, I would if it was legal. I don't think it is. Sometimes it's nice to have a cold beer after a sauna. And VLS, thank you for the note. Sauna is the only word in the English language that's acceptable from Finland. And people often say sauna, and it's sauna. And a sauna, of course, is a steam room, but in Finland, it's almost like a religious experience. Most homesteads, good ones, will have a sauna, a separate building out back with a stove in it, old school, rocks on top of the stove. You fire that thing up, you get it boiling hot, and you pour water on those rocks, and you get this thing turned into like just a little steam chamber. And in Finland, this is done co-ed. You go in there, you boil away all of your troubles and worries. And then in the wintertime, you go jump on a snowbank. In the summertime, you jump in the lake. Or so I've been told, you might slam a beer or possibly some good Finnish vodka afterwards. But yeah, the sauna is a whole different thing. I haven't been in one in a little while, but my grandfather had one behind his camp, so we called his cabin up north. Why do tall guys love compact, mid-sized vehicles? I've had them all prefer the slightly tighter driving cockpit. I don't. I'm 6'2". I know some people have asked me or seem surprised when I tell them that. And I don't know how you'd guess how tall I was because I never stand up on camera, but I'm 6'2". And so I drive a Ford Explorer, which I can walk up to and just sit down in without climbing down into. I can tell you that cars like Corvettes and things like that, although they're fun to be in, or my friend has a Lotus Esprit Turbo, climbing into that for me was almost like a gymnastic exercise. So that's one problem with being tall if you enjoy cars. Is it illegal to sell, trade, or buy vehicles on a Sunday in Michigan? It used to be. I know the car dealers in Michigan were at one point in time weren't allowed to open on Saturdays or Sundays. But I believe civilians can. But I don't think car dealerships could at one point or another. Bonjour from Tony King Sada. Do DJs personally own a lot of albums or just borrow them from the station? Jay, that depends on your use of the word borrow. Every DJ I know has a huge music collection. And in the old days, a lot of radio stations would get in tons of music, and they'd usually get more than one copy of an album that was getting played. And they'd often let the DJs take them. And a lot of the ones that didn't get taken that way were often just stolen anyways, because it depends on if the station actually played them or transferred them onto carts. So if you were at a radio station in the old days that took the music from a record and put it onto a cart, you no longer needed the record anymore. So I know that a lot of stations like that would just say, hey, whoever wants this can have it. But a lot of those records, they punch the corners out of them and they call them cutouts. And so if you were ever in a used record store and you found a bunch of albums with the corners punched out of them, it's because some DJ came in and cashed in his collection because he got hard up for money. But most DJs I know have huge, huge music collections. But nowadays, of course, it's all digital. So I have on my computer a monstrous collection of music, but I've actually bought all mine or burned it from, made MP3s off of the vinyl that I've got. So Daryl Ross says, I need a roof-mounted winch to get out of a Corvette. Pretty much. And by the way, and I'm not just saying so I can throw this in here, but that Dodge Daytona right there is based on a real car that Bobby Isaac drove, and a friend of mine owns it down in Alabama, a guy named Tim Wellborn, and he let me drive that car. And that car, and also Richard Petty's Superbird that I had a ride in, I've gotten into and out of both of those cars several times. There's nothing more difficult than a guy my size and girth climbing into a car like that right there, which was designed for Bobby Isaac, who was a skinny guy, I think about 5'8" or 5'9". And I remember at one point being stuck like half out the window with my body twisted and my foot like through the steering wheel and trying to, I wasn't sure if I should try to climb the rest of the way back in or climb out or maybe like fall over backwards. And it can be very, very embarrassing. So I know there's a trick to it, but I didn't figure it out. Let's see here. My wife and I bought a 2019 Explorer a month after you did. We have a 2010 with 160,000 miles. We love them both. Same here. I've got a 2019. It's got only 7,000 miles on it right now. And my 2002 has 137, 138 on it right now, and it's still running like a champ. So Joseph Smith is 6'6". I just fall on the ground and get up. Pretend like nothing happened. Joseph Halford, sounds like you need to try to get out an old-style Mini Cooper. I never have. And that's the kind of thing. I would get claustrophobia. I see these little cars. There's these little cars, whether it's a Mini Cooper or one of those little smart cars or something. I look at that car and go, if you actually said, Steve, for 1 year, you've got to drive that car, I would actually just say, I'll walk. To me, it would be like punishment. So I couldn't do it. Johnny Knoxville, have you ever been to Milwaukee? I've only driven through it. I've driven through it a couple of times, and I've never stopped. So I apologize. It's one of the great cities in our country that I have not been to yet. So Paul Newman said the most difficult part of racing for him is getting in and out of the race cars. Probably. And one thing you have to remember about modern race cars is once you get in them, then you get in the seat, and then you strap yourself in, and there's all kinds of things holding you in place, including your head. So you probably feel really, really secure once you're in there. But the tricky part then is undoing all that and climbing out, especially in a bad situation. That's the scary part. So imagine being in one of those cars that tumbles a few times, lands upside down, and catches on fire. And at that point, trying to get out of that and get out is a scary proposition. So, David Brewer, I have a 1999 Ford Explorer, best car I ever had, and he's 6'2". Dude, we're like long lost twins. What can I tell you? Johnny Knoxville, Steve, you know why Porsches had the ignition on the left side of the steering wheel? I hate to ask, is it clean? So, yeah. Here's what we're gonna do. We've been on for an hour. The runner bib is upside down because I had it right side up, and the top was curling, and it was bothering me. But none of this stuff back here is carved in stone. It's just back there for fun. So we've been doing this for over an hour. I got to call it a day. I actually have work to do. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to tell you this. I believe that everything that we are doing here appears to have worked as much as necessary for my purposes. So what I'm going to do is start doing regular podcasts once a week, probably on Sundays. And I'll pick a time, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'll try to put it in the middle of the day like that so that the people on the East Coast can catch it, the people on the West Coast can catch it without having to get up at some ungodly hour. And the people around the world, you guys are on your own, but people checking from all over, so I don't really care. But that's going to wrap it up for me right now. And anybody who has any questions or comments about this, you can still check in below. This video will be archived. It'll take about half an hour or so, but it'll be archived. And I hope to have the next one up that we'll be doing live, hopefully on Sunday. I'll check the time, and I'll try to mention it in the show notes of the upcoming videos between now and then, because today I think is today, Monday? I don't even know. Let's see. Oh, it's September 30th, I can tell you that. So that's going to wrap it up for now. Thank you guys for playing along, and I hope you have a great day. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.